Zodiac Killer, The Devil with a Typewriter. Zodiac Killer, Part 1, The Shadow in the Bay. What do you do when a killer writes you a letter before you even know he exists? This is how the Zodiac Killer introduced himself to the world. Not with a crime scene, but with a taunt, with puzzles, with terror sealed in an envelope. And from the very beginning, it was personal. December 20th, 1968, Benicia, California. A small, quiet town north of San Francisco. Teenagers, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday, park along a lover's lane, not far from Lake Hermon Road. It's the kind of place kids go to escape curfews, parents, and reality. But that night, they don't come home. Just after 11 p.m., their bodies are discovered near their car. David was shot once in the head. Betty Lou, 5 times in the back as she tried to run. There were no witnesses, no known enemies, no clues. The case chilled the small community, but it didn't make headlines. Not yet. Fast forward to July 4th, 1969. Another young couple, Darlene Ferrin and Michael Majot, parked in a car at Blue Rock Springs Park near Vallejo. Fireworks echoed in the distance. Just before midnight, a man walked up to the driver's side, shined a flashlight in their faces, and opened fire. Darlene was killed. Michael survived, barely. He later described the shooter as a stocky white male, wearing glasses. But the next move stunned everyone. Within an hour of the shooting, a man called the police from a nearby payphone. Calmly, he confessed to the murders, not just the one that night, but also the Lake Hermon Road killings. He gave details only the killer would know. The Zodiac Killer had arrived. A few weeks later, 3 newspapers, the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald, received nearly identical letters. Each began with the same chilling line. "This is the Zodiac speaking." Inside were handwritten ciphers, symbols, letters, and cryptograms totaling 408 characters. The killer demanded they be published, or he'd kill again. The newspapers complied. It didn't take long for a married couple, schoolteacher Donald Harden and his wife Betty, to crack the code. The message read, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all." It wasn't about money. It wasn't about revenge. It was about the thrill. In September 1969, the Zodiac struck again. This time, it was even more theatrical. College students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were picnicking near Lake Berryessa in Napa County. As the sun dipped low, a man approached them wearing a bizarre costume. A black executioner's hood with a white crosshair symbol on the chest. He tied them up, spoke calmly, then stabbed them both repeatedly. Cecilia died. Brian survived. Before fleeing, the killer scrawled a message on their car door, listing the names and dates of his previous victims, signing it with the same symbol, a circle with a cross. That symbol would become infamous. Just 2 weeks later, the Zodiac escalated again. October 11th, 1969, San Francisco. A cab driver named Paul Stein picks up a passenger in the city's theater district. At the intersection of Washington and Cherry, in the upscale Presidio Heights neighborhood, the passenger pulls a gun and shoots Stein in the head. Witnesses see a man wiping down the cab. Strangely, responding officers mistakenly think they're looking for a black suspect. allowing the real killer to walk right past them. This time, the Zodiac didn't just flee. He sent the Chronicle a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt. It was a warning. He could strike anywhere, at any time. By the end of 1969, fear gripped the Bay Area. Schools canceled outdoor recess. Parents escorted children everywhere. People checked their mailboxes with shaking hands. But the Zodiac was just getting started. He continued sending letters, more ciphers, more threats. He claimed he'd shoot out a school bus's tires and pick off the little darlings as they come bouncing out. Police departments across multiple counties scrambled. Dozens of detectives worked the case full-time. Suspects were interrogated. Theories abounded. But there was no arrest, no solid leads. And the killer, he was still writing. In part 2, we'll dive into the rest of the letters, the taunts, the infamous 340 cipher, and how Zodiac vanished without a trace, leaving more questions than answers. To be continued. Zodiac Killer. Part 2. A killer who vanished. By early 1970, the Zodiac Killer had cemented himself as the most feared and most elusive predator in America. But instead of stopping, he escalated. He didn't just kill. He played games. He taunted police. He tested the public. And worst of all, he disappeared without ever being caught. This is how it unfolded. Between late 1969 and 1974, the Zodiac sent over a dozen letters to newspapers, police departments, and even private citizens. Each carried the same sinister tone, often starting with the chilling words, "This is the Zodiac speaking." He bragged about his murders. He claimed new victims. He drew diagrams of bombs he said he planted near school buses. He included more ciphers, unsolved puzzles meant to reveal his identity or his philosophy. The most famous of these was the 340-character cipher, mailed to the San Francisco Chronicle in November 1969. For 51 years, it remained unsolved, until a trio of amateur code breakers cracked it in 2020. The message: "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner." It revealed nothing about his name, only more about his ego. In 1970, the Zodiac claimed responsibility for the bombing of a school bus. Though no evidence of such a bomb was ever found, he also sent a greeting card with a blood-stained piece of cloth, again claiming credit for Paul Stein's murder. Then came the threats against random citizens, against police officers, against children. His messages were laced with astrological symbols, coded words, and references to past murders. At one point, he mailed a bomb diagram labeled "To kill a bus full of kids." Every time a letter arrived, the city froze. People canceled plans. Kids stayed home. Police raced to verify whether a new murder had occurred. But most of these claims led nowhere. There were no bodies, no physical evidence, just paper, ink, fear. In 1971, the letters slowed, but they didn't stop. Then, for years, silence. In 1974, the Zodiac reappeared one last time with a handful of strange letters. One praised the movie The Exorcist, calling it the best satirical comedy I have ever seen. Another included a score tally. Me equals 37, SFPD equals 0. And then, nothing. Just silence. No new murders confirmed. No more letters definitively tied to the Zodiac. It was as if he'd vanished into smoke. But what if he didn't stop. Some investigators believe the Zodiac continued killing under different names or in different cities. True crime author Robert Graysmith claimed the Zodiac was responsible for dozens more deaths throughout the 70s and 80s. Others think he may have died, been imprisoned for another crime, or simply lost interest. Several suspects emerged over the years. The most infamous, Arthur Lee Allen, a former schoolteacher with a violent past. He owned Zodiac-style watches, typewriters, and lived near several crime scenes. Police searched his home, found weapons, found handwritten notes, but DNA evidence never matched, and Allen died in 1992 without ever being charged. Forensic testing in the early 2000s revealed partial fingerprints and DNA on some Zodiac envelopes, but the results were inconclusive. In 2021, a group calling themselves the Case Breakers claimed the Zodiac was a man named Gary Francis Post. They pointed to photo comparisons and alleged links to military codes, but the FBI never confirmed it, and the case remains open. The mystery remains. In Part 3, we'll dive into the theories, the psychological profile, the cultural legacy, and ask the question that haunts every unsolved crime. What if he's still out there? To be continued, Zodiac Killer, Part 3, The Man Who Became a Myth. The Zodiac Killer didn't just vanish, he transformed from a murderer into a symbol, from a suspect into a legend. His story became bigger than his crimes, bigger than his victims, bigger than the investigation. He became America's most haunting mystery. So who was the Zodiac Killer? We may never know, but that hasn't stopped anyone from trying. Over the decades, countless books, documentaries, and movies have pored over the same clues, the same handwriting, the same cryptic puzzles. Theories range from plausible to outlandish. Some believe he was a loner with military training. Others say he was a sadistic genius who worked in law enforcement. A few even suggest Zodiac was more than one person. But through it all, one truth remains. No one has ever been convicted. Arthur Lee Allen is still the most notorious suspect. He was right-handed, owned a typewriter similar to the ones used in the letters, and wore a Zodiac brand watch with the killer's signature crosshair symbol. But DNA didn't match. Fingerprints didn't match. And despite intense surveillance, nothing ever stuck. Other suspects have come and gone, including a journalist, a convicted sex offender, and even a man whose own son accused him after finding hidden evidence. Still, no definitive proof. The Zodiac became a cipher himself. Criminal profilers believe he was methodical, intelligent, narcissistic. He likely kept souvenirs. He may have written more letters that were never published. He may have changed identities, or simply stopped. Some say he died in the 1980s. Others think he watched from a distance as his myth grew, enjoying every minute of it. After all, the Zodiac seemed less concerned with killing and more obsessed with being known. His cultural shadow is enormous. The 1971 film Dirty Harry was inspired by the Zodiac case, complete with a cop hunting a sadistic killer who sends taunting letters. David Fincher's 2007 film Zodiac reignited public fascination, introducing a new generation to the unsolved puzzle. Podcasts, Reddit threads, documentaries, the Zodiac is everywhere. Not because of what he did, but because of what he never gave: closure. He left behind fear, mystery, and a signature, a circle with a cross through it. So, is he still alive? It's possible. If he were in his mid-20s in 1969, he'd be in his late 70s or 80s today. He could be a grandfather, a neighbor, a face in the crowd. Or maybe he's long dead, ashes scattered, secret buried. That's the horror of it. He may never be found, because the Zodiac Killer didn't just disappear. He became a ghost in plain sight. And ghosts, as we know, don't answer questions. The end.